Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat 5 segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Big Fat 5, a podcast financially supported by Big Fat Snare Drum. This week's guest is everybody's favorite drummer, Ryan Seaman. Ryan has been on my wish list of guests for a while now, and surprisingly enough, we were able to finally work it out while I'm on the road when it's the hardest time to schedule people. Anyways, Ryan has played with so many amazing artists throughout his career, especially in the punk rock scene, but his current project is called I Don't Know How, But They Found Me, often called IDK How, featuring himself and Dallin Weeks. Ryan is one of the most likable guys out there, and I look up to him and how he's navigated his career in many ways. I know I say this about every guest, but I really enjoyed this chat. Ryan and I have a lot in common when it comes to our background as drummers, and it was just an easy chat. So go check out his band, IDK How. They're awesome, and he really is the kind of person you want to see succeed. So please enjoy my chat with Ryan about the 5 records that shaped him into the player he is today. Cheers. All right, so I usually avoid this question on this show because it doesn't really fit the format, but it seems like everyone knows Ryan Seaman, everyone loves Ryan Seaman. I always see you out at a show or dinner with someone or playing with someone, and we do get a lot of people with Big Fat Snare Drum to ask like the advice on networking in LA. You would seem like you are the epitome of a dude that does that, and I mean that in the good way because it seems like you actually have genuine relationships with all the people that you interact with. So how do you navigate that? How do you prioritize what nights a week to go out? How often do you get alone time? Because it seems like you never do.
That's a really good question. But I just think that like if you want to be, a working musician, you just have to integrate it into your life. You can't just think that things are going to happen for you. You have to literally do it yourself. It's not always the goal though, because I feel like when you work with somebody, you want to make sure that you want to make sure that they're going to be cool anyway, Yeah. And so I feel like it's just always been ingrained in me. Dude, I've been going to shows since I was like a teenager and just like talking to people and learning and everything. So how do I have time for it? I guess I go to the shows I want to go to. I hang out with people that I want to hang out with, and I just kind of do things on my own time. That's the best way I can describe doing it. But, I try to prioritize my days because, there's nothing worse than working for quote unquote the man. And so I try to make every day count for me, and it's not even necessarily like networking. It's just people that I want to be around. But I mean, like, look, everybody comes to LA because they either want to be an actor or a musician. They want to work in entertainment. They want to have some sort of, facet in the industry. And so I've been out here for almost 20 years now, but I just feel like you just integrate it. That's it. I love going to shows anyway. I love hanging out with people. I'm an extrovert. What can I say? That's basically, that's my deal. This is how I got here. There's no formula. There's no like, well, if you do this will get you here. It's just like, I guess what I could try to say is that 9 times out of 10 bands fail and the 1 in 10 that don't fail were the ones that were too stupid to stop. And so I'm too stupid to stop. So I just keep going until I can't anymore. And that's it for me, you know?
That'll be on your epitaph.
That's right.
Too stupid to stop until now.
Right.
Well, let's just get into your influences. And I know I apologize. Well, I'll ask you this. What was your mindset going into this? Were you stressed out that I only gave you the option of 5, or were they super easy?
I was. So the list I gave you was just everything that kind of formulated my drumming in my early years, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I literally, so I mean, when I was growing up, I didn't have any siblings. I had to move around every single year. I never went to the same school twice until I moved to Salt Lake City, or until I moved to Park City, actually, when, you know, houses were affordable and when it was like a, you know, suburban life. Now you can't even get a house now up there unless you pay like $1 million. But, so like my family always tried to move to like good places where, you know, I could like go to a good school and everything like that. But my dad was a cinematographer. And so I just kind of had to like really be interested on my own accord, you know? So like, I mean, I kind of put it in kind of like a chronological order of like how I found the bands.
Yeah.
You know? So like, I mean, we'll get into it. But what I was trying to say is I didn't have any siblings. I didn't really have anybody to pave the way for me. So I kind of just like found the stuff on my own. And then once I found like my punk rock community in Salt Lake City, I just kind of just stuck with it, you know? So,
well, they're really fun drum parts to play.
They are. They're in some of them. I mean, some of the stuff I've given you, like, I mean, there are honorable mentions on there, but like, I just, you know, there's some stuff I listened to today where I'm like, how the hell did he play that fast? You know, like Derek Grant from Alkaline Trio. I mean, dude, he must have been doing some sort of something back when he was playing drums with the Suicide Machines. I don't know if you've heard that record, Destruction by Definition, but oh my God. I mean, that was like one of the first CDs I went into like a record store and bought, maybe like 97 or something, you know? It was when like the skate punk thing was like really happening. And it was like when Warped Tour was like really big on the punk rock. But back then too, it was like the faster it was, the better it was for me. Meaning like I just always wanted to play fast when I was a kid. I just had so much energy. So
yeah, punk rock, I don't listen to it a lot, but if I want to go get a sweat on in the studio, that kind of stuff, 100%.
Yeah, I don't listen to it a lot now, but I mean, we're talking about like the 5 albums, and these are the albums that like brought me up, you know?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
No one should ever be ashamed or have to, you know, explain the reason why they listen to the records any record they've ever listened to.
For sure.
But I mean, great one to start off with. The album's Hard Day's Night, released year's 1964. The artist is, of course, the Beatles, and the song is If I Fell, which is such a beautiful song. The drummer's, of course, Ringo. So yeah, take it away. Talk a little bit about it, where you were when it came into your life, and then we'll listen to about a minute of it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was probably, I would say at this point, maybe like 8 or 9. And my parents just always like immersed me in watching Beatles movies. Yeah, so like we get around and watch like Hard Day's Night and Help and, you know, Yellow Submarine, and just, my parents were huge Beatles fans. So they brought it into, you know, my, you know, repertoire, I guess. And they just, you know, I was just always like tapping on things. And I was like a little kid, and I was like, you know, 4 or 5 or whatever. And so by the time I was like 8 years old, my parents asked me if I wanted to go get drum lessons, if that's something that would interest me. And so I did. And that was one of the first songs I got to learn on drums. And yeah, it was pretty, I mean, it's a pretty easy song if you're just trying to play the drum kit for the first time. It's like a pretty good introductory song for.
Was that your choice, or was that the drum teacher's choice? Okay.
It was actually my choice. It was pretty slow, but I mean, I think I was in like 2nd grade when I learned the song, you know, for the first time. But he was trying to get me, like, the first thing I ever learned on drums was like a paradiddle. So he wanted to see if I knew how to do anything, you know, just like, okay, so I want to see if this kid's even meant to like play. So let's work on this week. And so I'd come back, and then I had a paradiddle down. He's like, okay, now let's work on like, you know, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So like, you know, kick and snare on the 1 and 3, and, you know, snare on the 2 and 4, and then the 8ths on the hat. So I learned all that. And then he's like, okay, I think you're ready to like start trying to learn songs. But, you know, I was going to say too, with learning drums, I don't think I actually understood how to learn actual drum parts until I was like 18 or 17. I would just like listen to things and just try to play along with it, you know, but I wasn't actually like dissecting each, you know, part of a song. you know? And then so now, and then I don't even think that really, that didn't happen until I was like a late teenager. I'm like, oh, I have to play like every single thing perfectly.
Yeah.
Because, you know,
what the hell?
When a crowd's watching you, they're not, I mean, at least in my experience, when a crowd's watching you, they're not like, oh, that guy, unless we're like drummers, oh, that guy didn't hit that one fill, or that guy, unless it's just calls for, you know, unless there's a specific part that just like really drives home. But it's just like, for example, this, you know, we'll get there later, but like, talking about like Green Day, for example, they're like one of my favorite bands of all time.
Yep.
So, you know, I didn't really start to like listen to what anybody was really doing. Like if there's like a drum solo on a song, I'd be like, wait, how did they do that? And I keep like rewinding it. I keep like, you know, trying to ingrain in my memory. And I don't think I really started doing that until I was like a late teenager. All I would do is I would just come home every day after school and just play along like I was like in the band or something.
Yeah.
You know, by myself.
I had my mirror set up next to me so I could watch myself. I had it all in my head.
Oh, really?
I was the rock star. Oh yeah. Because I wanted to look cool. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure. I was just like playing drums every single day from about like second grade until, I don't know, like seventh or eighth. And then that's when I started like making bands and then playing out and everything. So I started really playing out like late middle school, early high school.
Well, let's listen to it. And speaking of fills, this fill going into it, da 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 da. You definitely need to nail that fill. That's if you're ever going to cover. Yeah. So here's If I Fell.
If I fell in love with you, would you promise to be true and help me understand? 'Cause I've been in love before and I found that love was more than just holding hands. If I give my heart to you, I must.
I love that he comes in with the snare, but then he goes to cross stick right away.
That you
That's actually the first time I learned cross stick.
Yeah.
more than her. If I trust in you, oh please don't run and hide. If I love you too, oh please don't hurt my pride like her. 'Cause
All right, so number 2, we were just talking about it, but it's Dookie. This is the album. Released here is 1994. The artist is Green Day. The song choice is Burnout, and the drummer is Trey Cool. So yeah, take it away. And then I'm assuming you might want to play that, like the drum solo part of it at the end, or...
Yeah, I guess like how I found them is I was like at a CD store with my dad, and at the listening station they had Green Day Dookie. So, you know, a long time ago you could go to a CD shop. I know CD shops, weird, right? And they had these things called listening booths, right? And then they have like the CD there, and you could listen to the whole album if you wanted to at the listening station. They had like maybe 20 of them at this place called CD Warehouse. And so, you know, they had the picture, it just said Green Day, and it had like the cartoon and the little monkey with like, you know, shit in his hand saying throw. I don't know if I could swear on this, but
You can.
Okay. So it says like throw, you know? And so it was just like a bunch of chaos happening. I'm like, what is this? So I heard it and I was like, I never heard anything like this in my entire life. I thought it was basically like punk rock Beatles, you know? I swear, man, I wore the shit out of that CD. I did. Scratched to hell. I would listen to it every single day. So I started on that. And then, you know, my parents knew that I was like taking an interest of just like playing really fast and aggressive. And so then they were like, hey, maybe we could put you in some sort of like, you know, the equivalent to a School of Rock that they have today. I went to a thing called the Colorado School of Music for a second. And you know, it's funny. I still keep in touch with one of those people that was in the band at the time. And they basically would put us in the band and they would have us like learn covers. So we learned like, and there's Seaman, you know, like Metallica. And then we'd have to like, we'd all jam together. And we did like a little show. So like my first show ever was in Denver. And so we had to learn like Nirvana's like About a Girl. We learned Basket Case, and we learned just like, you know, like Offspring, like Come Out and Play, just like things like that were like popular at the time. And so I was saying though that the guy that I'm still friends with in the band, he like works out in LA. Like he's like a sound guy at the Echo, and he tours with like the Aquabats, and he's like a legit sound dude. Tours with like Oliver Tree.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah. So really cool guy, but it's just weird where life takes you, you know? Yeah. So I was in 5th grade when that happened. We put together the band. We were called Squirrel Phlegm, right?
Nice.
That was the name of the band. And so all we did was covers, but I mean, learning all the like this Green Day stuff like opened my doors to so many other things. So my parents enrolled me in like a music school, you know? Like I put that in quotes. You can't really see me, but yeah, so I guess Green Day was like the path that I took in music, just because, that's what I was into at the time. I'm still in the Green Day, but I'm just saying that like they are the ones that truly opened the door for everything else. Beatles opened the door for just me liking music, and then Green Day was the band that just made everything else happen.
All right, well, yeah, let's just play Burnout. And so, like I said before, there is kind of this Trey Cool kind of vamp at the end. So I'll start maybe with like a minute left in the song, and we'll go from there.
That's why I picked the song, because I wanted everybody to hear how gnarly the solo was for like, at the time, a fourth grader listening to, an aggressive punk rock band for the first time.
Yep.
I mean, like I wasn't old enough to go to shows. Everything I found was either, on like MTV, or you physically had to go to a record shop, or, maybe people at school would be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's how I got into all this stuff, man. Yeah.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, here's Burnout. Actually, no, I want to start. So this is the first song on Dookie, and I do want to at least start it because it does start with a drum part as well. So let's just play that, and then I'll go forward. So here we go. All right, there we go. All right, now let's go it's just so good. All right, here's the ending of it. The third and fourth, I rip off those so much because as a kid, the third one is the coolest one, and then at the very end, he like goes over the bar line and hits that on the two. Yep. So good, dude. So good. Amazing. Have you ever met Trey? It seems like you would.
You know what? I did, but again, it's one of those things where he probably wouldn't remember me. I was just not, so the one that would probably know me the most, even though he seriously still really doesn't know me at all, and I don't blame him at all, because life is crazy. But Mike Dirnt. I've met him probably 3 or 4 times now. Every time I meet him, I always like remind him of like the time I met him before or whatever, and then he remembers usually.
Okay.
But now I've befriended Kevin Preston, who plays guitar for them.
Oh yeah.
He's like a hired guy for them, but he's like in some of their side projects. But we just like kind of met just being out in the town, and he likes IDK Howe, and so we became friends that way. I met him at an art show a long time ago. And so, yeah, we've kept in touch. And so we actually did a show with Green Day recently in Singapore. I shouldn't say with them, but we were on like the same day at this like F1 racing thing in Singapore. But I got to go watch them afterwards. I said hi to them like at the airport. We had the same flights going there and back, so that was kind of cool. But no, I've never met Trey really. I met him one time. I had to. It's a whole story in itself, but we didn't really get to talk drums. We just were standing in a circle, smoking weed, passing around a joint, and that was probably like 11 years ago.
I mean, that's a fun way to have met Trey Cool. So
no, it was totally awesome. But I mean, like I basically one of my friends at the time, his name was Jesse Mallon. He was playing a show at the Bowery Electric, and I remember afterwards. Yeah, this is like 2009 or 10. But I remember standing in the crowd. There was like a couple hundred people, but I see Billy Joe like out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Billy Joe, And so I was going to go say hi to him. And then he went backstage, and there was no security anywhere. And I knew Jesse, of course. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go backstage. Fuck it. Just walk back there like I own the place. And then everybody looks at me like, what is this kid doing back here? And I just freeze in my tracks. I'm like, and then Jesse's like, hey, Ryan, what's going on? And then I was like, okay, cool. That's my introduction to getting to hang out, I guess. So like my girlfriend at the time and I were hanging out back there for a good like half hour and just talking to them. So, I mean, I remember him being very nice and very funny.
Yeah.
So, no, we unfortunately didn't get to talk about drums. That would be so rad if that were to ever happen. But
yeah, going back to the F1 thing, I remember this past weekend because I am still on Instagram. As I remember, Tosh, the drummer, Tosh Peterson, they had him put his shirt on, which he was pretty upset about when he played. So
yeah, I actually got to meet him backstage at the Green Day thing. He was just like chilling. I mean, we were Instagram friends. I didn't really like know him though, but I went up to him. I was like, hey man, like I'm Ryan. We follow each other. And he's like, oh dude. And so then we ended up hanging out for like an hour. And he's just like a really sweet kid. He's got a bright future ahead of him. That's all I know.
Yes, he does.
I had no idea that his dad was a drummer at one time for the English Beat. Did you know that?
I knew his dad was a drummer, but I didn't know the specific band. No.
Yeah. He played for the English Beat, I guess, for a little bit. So I thought that was kind of rad.
Tosh is also, for anyone listening, he has been a guest on the show, I think maybe a year ago. So go check that episode out. Tosh is amazing. But all right, number 3, the album's Nevermind, release year's 1991. Artist is Nirvana. The song choice is In Bloom. The recording of this is Dave Grohl. And take it away.
So this kind of goes back to my story about how I found Green Day, but then my parents were like, "Hey, let's enroll you in like a music school." And so that's how I found out about Nirvana. And then I did a deep dive, but Nevermind was my favorite of the Nirvana discography,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, I think that's the first record that Dave was on, right?
Yeah, he's only on 2 of them. He's on Nevermind and In Utero.
Yeah. So like, just even hearing that, again, powerhouse drummer. There's so many songs I could have picked, but I just remember watching In Bloom like really late on MTV one night in my room, and I was like, this band's awesome. They're just like wrecking shit and kind of making fun of the whole like Ed Sullivan, late night. Yeah, and just big drums, like the big 14-inch rack tom and the 18-inch floor. It just sounded huge. I found out about Nirvana, I think, right as Kurt Cobain died. That's when I found out about him. But I listened, but I was like, at this point I was in 6th grade or something like that. And I would just come home every day after school. I'd be playing nothing but like Green Day and Nirvana. And I'd play like Smashing Pumpkins. They didn't make the list, but still, I mean, Jimmy Chamberlain, super badass. But I'd be playing along to those records like every day when I come home from school. Basically, if it had guitars and it was on MTV at the time, that was my that was my scope. So, so I thought In Bloom was a great choice because he just wrote such an iconic, drum fill going into a song.
All right, well, here's In Bloom. Well, even that as an example, when he goes into that downbeat of the beat, he only does one bass drum, and then the rest of them are boom, boom, tap.
Yep. No crash either going into the verse.
Well, the change is moods. Spring's here again. Rip the dark grass. And the one who likes all our pretty songs, and he likes to sing along, and he likes to shoot his gun, but he knows not what it means. Knows not what it means.
Did
Did you know that he actually didn't write that drum part?
You know what? I did learn that much later, and I was like, really? but he did it. Even when like I'll say this too. Even when like I'll get things from artists, like if I'm going to like do like a session or something, they'll send me like a file of like maybe some kind of drum something that they wrote, and or they might be like, I don't know what I should really do here. Maybe you can help me figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
But then because I do it, and this is like when you're writing a song too, then it becomes mine. Like on a mix of a song, it's like maybe some guy mixed the song, but then they give it to somebody else. They tweak maybe a few things, and then now it's their mix. Now they mixed it. You ever notice that?
100%.
In music?
Yeah.
So it's ridiculous. But what I was going to say is that like I think that's really cool because a lot of times, man, people don't care who wrote it; they care who performed it.
Yeah.
And Dave Grohl performed the shit out of that.
Yes, he did.
So. But yeah, so ever since then, I was hooked on Dave Grohl, and he's just always been a powerhouse hitting drummer. And also, I didn't know this either, but do you remember this Beatles movie called Backbeat? Remember that? It was about the Beatles when they when they were playing in like Hamburg, Germany, like in the early days, like before Ringo Starr got involved. It was like Pete Best and Stu Sutcliffe. They're playing. It's like a story. Like some of it's like fictitious, some of it's real, whatever. So like. This movie called Backbeat. And then I got the soundtrack, and years later I looked on the back, and it was like, because it's basically them performing Beatles songs, but on the back it said drums by Dave Grohl. So I was just like, holy shit, that makes him that much cooler to me now. He played this whole entire soundtrack of like songs that were in the movie, but it was all Beatles songs, but it was performed by said artists. So yeah, I thought that was really neat.
All right, number 4. And this one, I do not know a lot about Refused. I've had a lot of bandmates that it's some of their favorite bands. So
really?
I'm excited to. I know. That's the response I get a lot. But the album is The Shape of Punk to Come. The release year is 1998. The artist is, as I said, Refused. The song is New Noise. And it's David Sandstrom. Is that how you pronounce it? All right. So go ahead.
So I found this band because, when I was growing up, I started to get into hardcore music when I was like maybe like a junior or senior in high school. So by the time I found out about Refused, they had already disbanded. And so again, I would go to my local record shop and I would rely on the record people, the people that were working there, or, they used to have these things called compilations. So I would find bands based on that too. So it's like, wow, I could buy, an album with like 28 songs on it or something, for like $10. And then I get to listen to one song from each band and then decide if I want to go buy that record or not. So like Epitaph Records and like Fat Records and like Hopeless and Fearless. These are all things I was really into growing up. Like those are the ones that were feeding me music because I was so integrated into going to shows. And, my friends were like, oh, have you heard of this band? Oh, you'd love this if you like that, So I grew up in like the Salt Lake punk scene, and there was only like so many places that you go check out music. And so, and the Warped Tour was like, this was like when Warped Tour was like a punk rock festival. But I remember getting handed like this thing called Punkorama, walking out or whatever. And I would be like, what is this? And so I started like collecting all of those. So it was like my dream to be on like a Punkorama compilation. Years later, I would get into a band that was on Epitaph, but that band was called I Am Ghost. But we would then be the first band on a new compilation called Unsound. So we didn't make it to the Punkorama compilation. I think they put out like, 13 or 14 of them. Basically, they just put one out like every single year. Yeah. So, I mean, all good things must come to an end at some point. But yeah. So I remember getting this album. It was Punkorama 4. It wasn't the song I'm about to show you. I'm showing you this song because this is the most like popular Refused song, but it has like really cool drum parts throughout the whole thing. But I remember first hearing it, and I was like, why is this band on Punkorama? Like, this doesn't sound like anything else that's on here. I'm not a fan of it, whatever. And so I kind of shunned it for like a couple years. And I went back and listened to it. And then it was just like, the albums that are like growers, that was this for sure. It was almost like a conceptual album because nothing ever, one song would just tie into the next. If you haven't checked it out, Ben, I swear it's a really great record. And
okay, yeah,
it competes with things today either, too. It's like, there's a lot of screaming, but there's a lot of like musical technicality parts too. Not even with just the drums, just with everything all together. But I think it paved the way for a lot of bands that are either still doing it or out there today. Like they were one of the first bands that did like the stupid fucking, the swoop haircut, and like they wore the tight black skinny jeans and, the tight, small shirts and all that stuff. And had like tattoos and just like, really skinny people playing out of big, amplifiers. And I don't know. I thought it was so rad back then. So I started listening to it and I was like, man, this drummer is just playing so many complicated things. I don't know where his brain is. And so I really tried hard to, I still even kind of mimic some of his stuff, but I mean, I try to throw like hi-hats in the fills, like before, maybe I go to a crash or something. That's kind of like my signature thing. So anytime I do a fill, I try to incorporate a hat before just going straight to the crashes.
Okay.
So he does a lot of really technical things, and he was my first outlet. I mean, seriously, he would do, even his ghost notes would matter into a song, but I mean, it's just pure chaos. There wasn't really any kind of like, structure, to some of their songs. But yeah, I think it's a really great band to check out. And then some people found out about them because of like, video games. Maybe it's like Tony Hawk Pro Skater or some shit, but they're like not that kind of band at all. But I mean, let's put it this way. The album was so influential that like this band broke up, not that long after putting this record out, that there was such a demand that they got back together. And then when they got back together, one of their first like appearances was at like a Coachella or something, So yeah, I think they're really great. And they all went off to do like other bands and whatever, but none of them for me hit as hard as Refused. And I think this is the only Refused record. I listened to the one after this one. Again, everything's circumstantial. Maybe you're at a certain point in your life, where you write something, but like the later Refused was not for me. This was definitely for me. So yeah, I guess you could take it away. But yeah, just some of his drumming is just like absolutely fucking insane. I think later on they grew up like wanting to maybe become more like of an indie band per se. They turned into hipsters, I guess. So, but this is like kind of like hardcore mixed with like some punk elements. So there's a lot, and there's like techno stuff in there too. It's really weird. It's really interesting, man. I'm telling you,
Faded in like a G.
Can I scream?
You have to listen to the whole song to really get the whole thing, because he just goes all over the place, you know?
Dude, this would be so fun to play live. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, here, keep listening. Check this out. There's some stuff he has. You have to listen to like way more of it. I mean, it's a long song, but
I'll go as long as you tell me to go, man.
okay, keep going. Going.
Nice.
This part coming up. Little things, ready?
I wouldn't be surprised if some like brushwork comes out.
There's some songs that like it'll be like chaotic, and then there'll be like an upright bass that comes in a little bit, and he does some jazz things. He goes back into like an aggressive part. Check that out if you ever get bored on a drive. You know, if you're just laying in your bunk at night, you can just be like, you know what, I'm gonna listen to this album.
100%. Yeah, trying to go to sleep. Let me just listen to just the most aggressive music. Hey.
Yeah, it's great, you know. But there's like orchestral parts in there. There's like dude. It's such a great record, and I feel like it still holds up to the test of time. That's just me though, you know.
Oh, it sounds great. I mean, I appreciate good sounding records too, and that one, yeah.
What's weird is that like I don't play anything that's even remotely what I listen to sometimes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm showing you things that like I got started on. Not so much what like I listen to now, but these are the things that like shaped up my drumming. So
well, I mean, I don't listen to a lot of stuff too, like I was saying at the beginning. But if you were to play it along to that record, your right hand technique to go quick with one hand would be flawless. If you played along to this, that you could then bring into a different genre. So it's just it all helps each other out.
Right.
Number 5, and I'm excited to talk about this one because I love this record so much. It's The Fury of, and it's the artist is the Aquabats. So The Fury of the Aquabats, released year's 97. The song choice is super rad, and it's Travis Barker.
You know, when Travis was a punk rocker, I'm just kidding. That was kind of a dig. I'm joking now. Before he was a Kardashian and when he was a punk rocker, you know, what I know about him is he grew up kind of like in Riverside, and he was like really into marching band stuff. But he basically took his own style and put it into punk rock music, and he changed the game for like a lot of people, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the story that I know about him is that, and I think I actually witnessed this firsthand, is that like you know, Blink-182 put out that record Dude Ranch, and he wasn't on that, and that was kind of their record that paved them into popularity. But then once they put out the record Enema of the State, then Travis Barker was on that record, and then from there on, like Blink-182 became this like technical, powerful band.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became more of like maybe the Travis show, because, you know, no disrespect to Mark and Tom, but like they're not technically on the same level as Travis on their own instruments.
I don't think anyone would disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
that's my own opinion, you know.
Yeah. Hot
challenge
take.
me there.
Yeah.
But like what I was gonna say, like when I saw the Aquabats a long time ago open up for Blink-182, it was like this thing called the Snow Court tour in like '98, and I got introduced to the Aquabats, and I thought, like, I was like, wow, these guys dress up like superheroes and then play ska and punk, and they have like horns, and what the fuck, like this is a really crazy band here. And they were extremely popular in Utah, so that's where, you know, that's where I grew up. And that's where I went to shows, and that's where everything happened. But when I heard this record, I mean, even today, the drumming still just like it holds up, you know.
Yep.
And he threw every possible thing at the what's the expression? You throw everything at the kitchen sink, you know.
Yeah.
He is just throwing everything that he possibly can while still accommodating to the song. And so there was a moment in time, I don't know if anybody knows this, so I actually got asked to fill in for the Aquabats.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
So Ricky, for whatever reason, he couldn't. There was like 3 shows that he like wasn't able to do, but then at the 11th hour, he was like, I could do them now. And so I learned like 20 songs or something like that in like a week. I was just like cramming them in, and the most difficult ones to learn, even because like again, I try to do everything perfectly by the record, and then once I have it perfectly by the record, if the band doesn't care or there's something that like I would rather do in place of it that I think I could do better, then I'll do something else. But most of the time, dude, I try to stick to like what's on the recording if I'm being hired for something. Yeah. So there was a lot of I was contemplating between putting either the song Super Rad or Cat with Two Heads on it, because there's some gnarly parts on that song too, but they're so subtle that you wouldn't even like know it. That's the thing with Travis's drumming, is that like he just adds things, and then when you try to like listen or learn, then it sounds then it's actually difficult, but it doesn't sound difficult. I think that's kind of like the best kind of drumming to me. To me, anything that sounds like you can do it, but you actually have to take a lot of practice to get there. So yeah. So anyway, I found the Aquabats through just, friends going to shows and all that stuff. And again, it was like the Aquabats were like so big in Utah. So they were the band that everybody liked, and I would just check them out. And so I only got to see Travis play with them one time. It was them, the Long Beach Dub All-Stars, which was like Sublime after Bradley Noel passed, and then Blink, and then Primus headlined. But
wow.
I wasn't really there. Yeah, I wasn't really there for Primus. I was there for all the other bands, but I stuck around.
I'm pretty sure that didn't Travis recently play with them for Feldman's like Long Beach festival?
Yeah, I think he sat in like on a song or something. Yeah. That sounds great, But IDK, my band, IDK How, we opened up for the Aquabats like when we first got started. They just asked us because I had been in, I was in another band that went on tour with them, and I kind of told them about this band. They're like, oh, you guys music sounds great. Like, why don't you open up for us? So we did like a little run with them. I think one of them also knew Dallin, so it was kind of an easy thing to just get thrown on the show because of all those factors. They even helped us shoot some of our first music videos. So I was just gonna say I have a lot of history with those guys. But what I was gonna say is, the drumming from Travis Barker, that's what made me really want to start getting fast. And then when he went to Blink-182, then I tried to learn, Enema of the State, which is the record that did everything for them. Yeah.
I got to ask you, so when you were going to sub in, would they have given you a name? Did you have a name picked out?
Probably just Ryan Seaman, I'm just kidding. Because like the C and like the Aquabats and the,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe Sea Power. I don't know what they would have called me. But they did, they gave me 2 costumes. They gave me the belt. There's a belt you have to wear.
Oh, yeah.
I was so excited, man. I was like so pumped to do it. And it was like 2 days before Halloween. So, your boy went as the Aquabats for Halloween. I remember I was at I was at a party, and someone was like, man, that costume looks like dangerously real. And I was like, well, it's like if you only knew.
It's so authentic.
Yeah, exactly. We're super homies. We keep in touch a lot. Christian is such a great guy, the singer.
Dude, you'll play with them eventually, man. You know it's gonna happen.
Maybe not. The drummer they have now, Ricky, he's really great, but he's been in the band for like 20 something years. Because before I was in this punk band called the Assorted Jelly Beans. I don't know if you remember them.
No,
but they were like a they were like a fast punk rock thing from like Riverside as well. And they would tour with bands like Strung Out, or they would tour. They tour with like a lot of like the Fat Wreck stuff. They were always like an opener. But yeah, so I don't know. It's just like the Travis stuff that I was having to learn was so hard, man. Like even today, sure. I made I made like an Instagram video. It's like, hey, I learned some stuff for the Aquabats. Like this is one of like the songs that @Travis Barker wrote, and so like Travis saw it, and then he gave me one of these signs on Instagram. That was it, the devil horns, metal horns, whatever. So he saw I could do it, but I tried to do it like exactly like he would do it, even back in the day. And I'm thinking like, man, when he was recording that album, he must have been like in his very early 20s, if not like late teens or something, So I wish I had marching band in my school. That's what that all makes me really wish. They just didn't offer it, because if they did, I would have been in it. Who knows what I could have been. Were you ever in marching band? ever?
I was in marching band, but it wasn't like we weren't. I mean, I grew up in a little town in Washington State of like 1,000 people, so we had a marching band, but it wasn't like a rudimentary.
Yeah.
We played the most. We played like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I was like da 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 da. It was
Yeah.
nothing crazy. So I wasn't in drum line, but I did have to carry a oversized snare drum around town for no reason. So
Right. Okay. Yeah, I wish I had that problem,
Yeah. Which is probably why I have a bad back now. So
Yeah. Yeah, my shoulders are killing me as we're talking, thinking about it.
all right, well
But,
let's play Super Rad.
Yeah, let's do it.
I've got a small friend who has a fat friend who had a big friend who gave birth to many friends with our flashlights to the sky. We waited for them to land. I've got two tall friends,
So clean.
small friends
Right.
who seem to have a problem with you. They got Roman candles, bottle rockets for the vandals who cover the lockers in blue. We're on our way, here we go. We're gonna take over, set it off one last time. Here we come again. We were strangers. And
Again, there's another song I wish I would have chose if we were just talking about technicality and showing off a drummer's, showcasing his abilities or whatever. But
I can play
I
it
just
if you want to play another song, man. There's no rules.
just to humor me, try Cat with Two Heads. Even in the
Okay.
beginning, the drums are gnarly, man.
science brings gifts of convenience.
This is what I'm talking about. This like disco thing he does. It's insane.
Continues to expand. But what happens when man creates something oh so wrong? Nature bites back in a big way. Good heavens, what have I done? I kept it in a box. I watched it grow a lot. It chewed right through the log. And ate all the new kids on the block. A scientist creates a beast in a secret.
And that's 97, so I would assume that's to tape. So I don't think there's editing. He sounds like that.
Yeah, like it's wild, right? So I mean, again, Travis Barker ahead of his time, and he's still crushing it. I don't even know how old he is now, but he's got to be in his late 40s.
I would
Has
say
to
yeah,
be.
because Mark just turned 50. I know Mark's a little bit older, but yeah,
Right.
man.
I mean, God, and he's still like crushing the social media game. He's still doing like all of it,
Yeah, no, he's more relevant than he has ever been. Well, that's your top technically 6. And you did mention some honorable mentions. Unfortunately, we don't have time for those, but you did say Enema of the State, everything, which is by Blink, Everything Sucks by The Descendants, Life in General by MXPX, that was a huge record for me as well.
Yep.
Worship and Tribute by Glassjaw. I mean, so many things. I'll actually put your honorable mentions in the show notes so people can go
Great.
check them out. I know you just got done with a tour with Joywave, a co-headline tour with IDK How. Is that how you
Yes.
abbreviate it?
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, so if people want to, I mean, do you guys have any other shows lined up? I know you're not on the socials that much, which is amazing for your mental health. But if people want to contact you, have them, if they want to say hey to Ryan Seaman, how do they get a hold of you?
Just all things at Ryan Seaman, just on Twitter, Instagram. Some asshole had at Ryan Seaman on TikTok, so I just added a 435 in there for my hometown.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, to bring back my roots.
Hell yeah, dude.
But
You have to stay
so
humble.
I mean, I'm not really on TikTok all that much. Because I'm like, almost 40 years old. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's basically it, man. I think for now, like we're just we have a new record ready to go, but we just have to go like record it. So that's the word on the street. And so probably going to be dormant for the rest of the year, but then you might see me pop up and do little things next year. So
Hell yeah, dude. Do you know who the producer is yet, or is that all secretive? You don't want to talk about it?
I don't really know. I know we're talking to a couple different ones, and they're pretty big names in the like alternative world. But yeah, that's all I could really say.
That's the best answer right there.
Yep.
Well, I'm not gonna say bye to you, because I believe I'm actually gonna record your podcast, which is Ryan Seaman and Friends, hosted on Adobe Radio.
Yes, and that airs every single Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. And then sometimes the Adobe Radio gods will put the actual podcast up on like Spotify and Apple Music afterwards. So it goes live on Thursdays, but then usually you can just find it like on any outlet that has podcasts. Okay. So Ryan's Seaman and Friends on everything.
Hell yeah. Well, I will talk to you in a second then, but I think that's all we're doing for this podcast.
Yes, sir.
So I'll pretend to say goodbye.
All right. Take care. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
appreciate
dude.
it.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using Isotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at isotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye!